Well, beautiful people, best damn nation. It is Wednesday, and you know what time it is. It is the Best Damn Wrestling Podcast. I am your humble host, Brian Renegade, and with me, I have the best damn crew. First of all, if you see this man in a dark alley, run. He will beat you up in front of your girlfriend and or wife. He is the green-eyed bandit. He fights people. Sometimes he fights people. He's your mama's favorite wrestler, and he can whoop your daddy ass, the one and only Roosevelt. What's happening?
Hey, man, they told me I'm not a wrestler anymore. They just said I was a straight savage fighter. So now I'm your mama's favorite fighter.
Yeah. Mama's favorite fighter.
Yeah. Look, I'm so serious. I'm so bad.
Tell them
that I was going to go to the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight. They told me stay my ass at home. They don't want none of that. They don't want
that bad juju there. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
They said stay my ass at home. What's going on, Brian? How you feeling?
I'm cool, man. Cool.
Yeah, look, we got a special guest in the house. I'm excited about this. Roosevelt, can you please introduce our esteemed guest? Please do the due diligence.
Hey, you excited about this? I'm excited about this. Let me tell y'all how I met this young gentleman to this way. Whichever way this way is for you guys when you're watching this way. I went to a big tryout in Pennsylvania, hosted by Bob Evans. Shout out to Bob Evans, one of our alums. And they invited Mr. Dru Onyx and another company down to the United States from Canada to come see some talent and in hopes of taking them back to Canada. And guess what? I showed out. I showed out a little bit, just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit. You know. But this man is. Ever since I've met him, he's been like a really good mentor. Like I've watched him behind the scenes. I talked to him and just grab some information, some advice and things like that. Had the opportunity to go to Canada. Totally enjoyed myself. Like when this man looked at me and said, "You don't have to want for nothing," bro. I ain't nothing. Like I have never had a promoter to treat me as well as this gentleman has treated me, and I am eternally grateful for the opportunity that he gave me and the things that we're going to be working on in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the owner of Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling and Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo, the one and only Dru Onyx. What up, Dru? What's going on?
Listen, now I have to ask you, how much do I owe you for those intros? Those intros from both of you guys were like magic, so I'm going to have to cash app you guys something, man, making me look so good.
Oh, man, your presence is reward enough, my brother.
It's all truth and love. Truth and love.
Well, listen, I'm very happy to be here, man. I heard so many good things, so many hype things about this podcast. You weren't lying. You went up there, but, you're saying, you showed out a little bit. You showed out a lot, you know what I mean? Enough for me to be like, yo, who's that brother? And where's he from? And trying to get all the information. There was more than, I would say about 50 or 60 gentlemen from all over the United States coming to check out. It was an opportunity to work for two promotions. One, mine, Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling. The other one was Jonquière Championship Wrestling. And the whole idea was to, we picked two people and one would go to my promotion, one would go to the other one. So after seeing how you were performing and how you were coachable and you knew your stuff and you could tell that you were a seasoned veteran, and there's a difference between a veteran and a seasoned veteran. You could wrestle 20 years and be garbage, you know what I mean? Or you could be, 10, 15, 20 years and you've been a road warrior. You've seen things, things, you've taken the information, changed it into intelligence, transfer the intelligence, and it becomes wisdom. And that was definitely something that you were, Roosevelt. So it was an absolute pleasure to have you come up to Canada.
And I like the way you put that. Took intelligence into wisdom, and the way you put all that, man, that's amazing. Let's get right into it. Brian, I know Brian wants to start it off. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, man, let's talk about the whole wrestling scene in Canada. You know what? Before I talk about the wrestling scene in Canada, I want to ask you,
yes, sir.
When did you fall in love with wrestling?
When did I fall in love with wrestling? It must have been around, I was 6 years old, and I saw it on TV. Quebec, where I'm from, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, is immersed in the history of pro wrestling. Pro wrestling has been here with, the Ledukes, the Rougeaus, a few other. There was a couple of brothers back in the 40s. So wrestling was predominant on our Saturday morning. Not only will we be getting WWF, but we had a local promotion here that was big in Quebec called International Wrestling. And then there was Maple Leaf Wrestling. So I was watching that. And at that time also, just before watching that, I got into comic books. I'm a big comic book head. And at 6 years old, the first comic book I ever had was the Justice League and all the different characters. And I just found a correlation very quickly between pro wrestling, the pro wrestlers, and the superheroes. They both wore tights. They both wore underwear over their tights. They both had long boots, and they both did, very athletic, acrobatic things. So the minute I saw that, for me as a 6-year-old, I saw that as like comic books come to life. And I've had a love affair with it, and it hasn't stopped now.
Absolutely. Now, you just hinted on a few minutes ago the wrestling scene in Quebec, Canada, and just Canada in general. And you mentioned some of the royal families, man. How do you think Canadian wrestling stacks up in the realm of wrestling, in the wrestling world?
I think it stacks up very well. Some of the best wrestlers came from Canada. Canada has a reputation, a lot of it has to do with the Bret Hart and the Dungeon, that the quality of wrestling. We're into, transitions of holds, telling good stories, being tough individuals. So, wherever I've gone all over the world, I had an opportunity to either wrestle or do seminars. As soon as people found out I'm from Canada, they were quicker to, be more attentive. And like I said, there's so many wrestlers from Canada, great ones. Like I said, the Ledukes, the Rougeaus. Even currently right now, we got Sami Zayn, we got Kevin Owens. We've had in the past, world champions such as, Bad Dog Vachon, the Vachons. He was an AWA world champion. Terry, is it Jimmy and what was it? Jimmy Garvin and Terry Garvin? I think it was Ronnie Garvin. A lot of people don't know that, he's from Canada. He was an NWA champion. And of course, there's Chris Benoit. And then you have the Hart Foundation. And there's so much people traveling from other places, whether it be Japan or Canada, to come and to wrestle in Canada. And by doing that, there was a sharing of knowledge. There was a sharing of techniques. And we were able to take this from Japan, this from England, this from the United States, and we made it our own. And we've been consistent forever.
Absolutely.
You mentioned some really good names, some really big names, but the two that sticks out the most with, a lot of people that are watching wrestling now would be Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And I've seen videos of you guys having Kevin Owens come to the school and speak to the students. What does something like that mean to you and to the students, to have someone that has made it out of, from Canada, made it onto the big screen, the big stage, and to come back and share his wealth of knowledge back to the students?
Well, it's a really good thing for a couple of reasons. Kevin Owens has a perception of a mean asshole, but he's anything but, Like, there's one thing as the persona, but Kevin Owens, the person, he's very giving, and he'll let you know, when you've done something good, and he'll let you know when you've done something bad. He's like a straight up shooter, but he'll acknowledge what you've done. Like, I've said this on many podcasts before, and I helped him prepare for his WWE tryout. So he was here for about 2 months at my school, and doing everything. All the beginners were doing basic fundamentals, all the grunt works, hundreds of Hindu squats, push-ups, and all that, and he never complained. And at that time, he was a former ROH, world champion, traveled all over the world, considered one of the kings of the independents. And as soon as he got signed, he came back and he told me, and he's like, "Yo, I want to talk to your students." And he just told my students on numerous times, because he came about 3 times. The first time after he signed the contract, he was telling my students, listen to your coach. He knows what he's doing. And then he won the Intercontinental Championship. And once again, he came back, talked to my students, told them, listen to Dru, this is what I'm doing. And then when he became the Universal Champion, he came back again. So, every time he had an opportunity to, he could have been, it was during the holidays, he could have hung out with family, and I'm sure he did and did stuff, but he found time to come back. And it was rewarding because it's validating. It lets me know that I know what I'm saying, what I'm doing makes sense. And for him to trust my tutelage and listen to me and applied what he got from me. Plus, with his knowledge and application of wisdom, as we mentioned before, he busted his ass. I had a chance to, and I've never said this before, but I had a chance to be at the Performance Center and speaking to Matt Bloom. He brought up Kevin Owens, and he said the one thing that impressed him was his work ethic. He wasn't going to let anything bother him. He wasn't like what they would consider the traditional cookie cutter physique, but he came in there and he busted his ass and he was coachable. So I think that was very important. And Sami Zayn, a lot of people don't know, like his 10th wrestling match ever, he fought me. And at the time I was a champion at an independent promotion. And whereas Kevin Owens, the minute I saw Kevin Owens years before, I knew he was going to go to the WWE. With Sami Zayn, I didn't think, it wasn't a thought. Like I didn't see him as much as I saw Kevin Owens, but just his 10th match and how much of a ring general he was. Like he was telling me, and at that time I must have been wrestling 3 years. You know what I mean? But he's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this and this and this, da 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 da. And I'm like, slow down, grasshopper. I was listening to what he was saying, and I'm like, okay. And when we got in the ring, I could have swore I was wrestling somebody who's wrestled at that time just as much or ahead. He just had it. So, and just before he left and he got signed, because we didn't have that interaction. He didn't come to my school, but I told him, I saw him at a local gym, because we both live in the same city in Laval. I saw him and I was telling him, you know what, dude, you've inspired me to go back out, because, and when I mean going back out, travel the world. And because I was doing that early, like I was one of the first ones here to be consistently, I'm going to England, I'm going to Ireland, I'm going to Japan, I'm going to, trying to apply my trade, because, and I'll explain that when I ran into Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero told me, there's 2 ways of trying to get it to the, get to the majors or get to where you go. You got to travel as many places as possible so people can see you. It's almost like a presidential election. You know what I mean? You want to be president, you got to go to, you got to go to Kansas, and then you got to go to North Carolina. Then you got to go to New York. You got to let people know who you are. So by the time, it's time for them to see you, they'll see all your accolades, where you've been, what you've done. So I stopped for a while, but then watching him, I was like, yo, it made me inspired. So I told him that, and he goes, that's funny, because he goes, you were the reason why me and Kevin felt that we could do what we could do, because we were watching you when you were traveling to England, when you were traveling to Ireland, and we were like, if Dru can do it, we can do it. So, it's almost like a full circle.
You never know who's watching you, or how you might indirectly influence people around you. And you are a multi-time champion, man. I want you to talk about carrying a promotion, and what does that mean to carry a promotion as a champion?
Well, I had an opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to be a multiple champion for the National Wrestling Alliance. And it's funny, because watching their champions, I always felt like to be a champion, it wasn't just to hold the belt. I knew before I was even told, when you're a champion, you represent the promotion. You have the trust of the owners, the bookers, and even the people who are wrestling under you at that time, because you're either the reason why people are coming, you're the draw, or you got to provide a consistency of excellence, a commitment to excellence, in order for people to have repeat business, because pro wrestling is repeat business. People don't understand, you know what I mean? you every time you perform, yeah, you're wrestling for yourself, but you're also wrestling for the crowd and you're wrestling for the promotion in order for these people to come back either every week, every month, or every 3 months, depending on when you come back to that town. So that being said, I would look at their champions, the traveling champions. I was enamored by that. As much as I was a pro wrestling fan, I was also a boxing fan, and like a fan historian. So I would read about Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali, who was one of my favorites. And he's traveling in Zaire, and he's in the Philippines, and they're all conducting themselves like professionals. Every time I saw Muhammad Ali, he was wearing a suit. Joe Louis was wearing a suit. Like, Marciano, they made the championship mean something. So now transfer it to the pro wrestling aspect. I was looking at people like Lou Thesz. Lou Thesz was always wearing a suit, always conducting himself like a professional. He was articulate. Nick Bockwinkel, Ric Flair, who was one of my biggest influences. Every time I saw him, this guy had a new suit. He would talk about the importance of the championship and why it was important to him, and he was willing to lose his life over it. So I saw those people and the Funks, and I had a chance to meet some of these people and pick their mind. So I knew, okay, so if I'm going to be a champion, I got to look the part, in and outside the ring. I have like maybe 10 pairs of boots, 100 pairs of gear, suits. When I first started out, I used to always wear custom-made suits, just to make sure that when you're a wrestling fan, you love wrestling. But just say you want to get the casual fans who may not necessarily know it, and they may see this as a lowbrow entertainment. You want to break the stereotype. So when they speak to me, they're like, "Oh my God, you're a wrestler, but you're articulate. Oh my God, you're well dressed." So I think it's very important as a champion. It's not enough just to be inside the ring. You got to be a spokesman for your brand. And that's something that I try to teach my students at Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling. It's the wrestling business. 90% of it is almost like the record business. 90% of it is business. 10% is either the wrestling or whatever genre you're in. So I just keep that as a constant reminder.
What do you look for as far as if you're trying to develop a young star, right? What do you look for in young wrestlers now that you can say, hey, this is how you become a superstar in today's climate?
Coachability. Can they listen? Are they willing to invest physically, mentally, spiritually, financially? Do they understand the commitment to excellence? I think these things are very important. Like, you can get, some great studs, guys with amazing physiques and stuff like that, and they may not know how to be a team player, especially if you're in sports where it's specifically just you. You know what I mean? If you've never been in a team playing aspect like football or any other sports that has an organization of different people working together as a collective to be champions, it's very hard to instill that in people. Some people naturally have it, and some people have to learn it. So you got to be willing to learn. You got to be able to humble yourself. At one point, it's almost like the army. The army breaks you down and builds you into the likeness of the soldier that they want for their armies. The same thing. Having an opportunity to wrestle in different places and work in different places. I was trained at the New Japan Inoki Dojo, so I knew specifically what they were looking for. I had a chance numerous times for WWE tryouts. I knew what they were looking for. Going as a guest coach, I knew what they were looking for. So the thing is, a lot of the students don't have those experience. A lot of the students think they know based on what they see on the internet, and they have to like practice that in real. It's one thing to play a video game, and it's another thing to learn how to wrestle. It's one thing to watch something and say, "Oh yeah, I know it." But no matter how much I may watch a TV show, it doesn't mean that I'll be able to be a brain surgeon just because it's a medical TV show that I watch. You got to be able to participate. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to humble yourself. It's very hard when a coach tells you suck or come on, or when you know what I mean. Like, most coaches uses different types of techniques to get at you. Some may yell, and that might trigger you. Some have to talk very smoothly because that works for you. You got to find what works. But the best thing that have worked for me and a lot of my top students is shame. It's like, Roosevelt, you really can't do that? Come on, renegade. I thought you were the man. They'd be like, yo, don't ever talk to me like that. I'll see you next week. Let's get this going. So need that. There has to be a passion. There has to be a drive. There has to be something, a fire in you to self-improvement. Things are not easy. You like, if it was easy, everybody would be at the WWE. Everybody would be at AEW. Everybody would be at TNA. Everybody would be at whichever promotions that they want. But you got to be realistic to yourself, and you got to be able to listen to your coach and figure out the game plan together. And same thing with the coach. How I may train you, Renegade, will be different than how I train Roosevelt. It depends on your learning curve, your athletic ability, and how much you're willing to listen.
Talk about the time that you've been in the professional wrestling business, and you're mentioning being a guest coach at the WWE PC. What is the difference in what they were looking for then versus what they're looking for now?
I think it's pretty much the same. They're looking for athletes in and outside the ring. They're looking for people who can carry their brand to be like realistic influencers rather than virtual or online. You got to be able to, the one thing I notice about you, I'm giving you your flowers now. When I saw Roosevelt, every time I saw Roosevelt, he was in a suit. And I'm like, yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I know that if I told him, listen, I need you to conduct yourself properly to represent my promotion at whatever function, I'm not going to be there panicking. You know what I mean? So they're looking for people who are confident. And to answer your question, what is the difference? There's no difference. They're still looking for athletes that are disciplined. They want to know that they don't have to tell you to go to the gym. They don't have to tell you, conduct yourself a certain way. They just want to teach you their form of wrestling. I find the only thing different, this is my opinion, just looking out. At the time I was at the Performance Center, which was in, I think, 2016, 2017, they were still watching, or the experimentation of, let's take all the top indie stars, all right? Or the guys who are indie but that are really good. And I find they're kind of looking away from that because I can only speak for myself. I thought that it felt like a lot of the indie wrestlers couldn't transition. It's like, you were a great CFL football player. That's a promotion that we have here in Canada, and Canadian Football League, and different rules, different, 3 downs, 4 downs, well, whatever the differences are, right? And then you get signed to the NFL, but you're still holding on to the CFL rules and regulations. It's not going to work. You know what I mean? And then, because what has happened is they got some of the very top talents. They got the guys who were like the killers at ROH and who were able to transition. So because they did so well and they were so good, they're like, okay, let me go find the talent just a little bit under the ones that we didn't pick up. And I just saw that a lot of them were having a problem of transitioning to the style of what was WWE. You know what I mean? It's a different brand. It's a different animal. It's a different language. And then that's why there was a big pickup of D1 students from universities. As you notice, they're hitting the universities because they're thinking, hey, they're already coachable. They've had at least 4 to 8 years, depending from high school to university. They're under a program. They understand about getting up at 5 o'clock and hitting the gym and team meetings and conducting themselves. And so they understand that format. So they don't have to teach them anything but the wrestling aspect. Whereas some guys, you will wrestle for 15 years, but who within the 15 years are you getting consistent guidance, consistent positive criticism? You're not getting it. It's a little bit like the Wild West. You know what I mean? So they would much rather go to, a university, deal with already a stud athlete, male or female, is already disciplined in physical engagement, coachable, and ready to work.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and you made some great points because college athletes are already used to a program, and that's what pretty much the WWE system has developed into now, which is a program. You know what I'm saying? So they putting the right pieces into place, and I know a lot of people don't like that WWE goes and searches for those top talents versus going on the indie scene. You know what I'm saying?
Brian, let me ask you this. Okay? And of course they're gonna say not everyone's like that, but you're there at the WWE. You see a dude 6'4", 215 pounds, no fat, can run the combines, and then an indie wrestler who's not as much as in shape, may know more than the other guy. You know what I mean? Physically, who are you gonna go for? Aesthetically, who would you choose?
I'm gonna go for the guy who looks like a star already.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Already looks like the star. You're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because at the end of the day, it's about money, right? And it's about attractions. And I know that Vince McMahon has always built his stars off to be attractions. You know, you want people to come out and view them.
Have you ever seen an out of shape quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, Donovan McNabb, where he was.
You're not an exception. You sound like a hater. You sound like a Donovan hater.
I'm just saying, he was a little portly. Yeah.
Okay,
Ben Roethlisberger had too many burgers. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but then comparing him to some of the indie guys, he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you understand? Because now you're comparing those two guys to the very best of NFL, and that's what it should be. And I don't want people to think that, okay, indie wrestlers are just garbage. I see a lot of good guys who are in shape and doing this stuff, but they're not the majority. They're even if it's a good 30 or 40%, most guys or most girls are not in the gym. Like I was just telling my students last week, and I said, hey, if you're not in the gym right now, stop telling me that you want to go to the WWE. Because who are they going to pick? They're going to pick the guy who's going to the gym 5 times a week. And I'm not saying that you have to go 5 times now. Start it. Like coaches can tell when you're at the peak of your physical attributes, you're starting or you're in the middle. All of those are acceptable. Do you understand? Because sometimes it takes 6 or 7 years for your body to mature, for you to mentally know what training technique is for you. Arnold Schwarzenegger did not look like Mr. Universe first year or second year. So I'm not saying that you got to look like like one of the Avengers. I'm saying that you got to start training like one of the Avengers. You always hear that terminology, one day or day one. So
absolutely. Let's talk about character real quick. You have 2 characters that you wrestle under. One is Dru Onyx and the other one is Soa. Let's talk about Soa to start off.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Both those gimmicks, I should be on medication, but go on. I'm sorry.
Look, when we get into who Soa is, I'm gonna agree with you because the character that it derived from, a lot of people would say, "Oh, that man, he was something else." So let's talk about Soa for a minute.
Yeah. So Soa is a derivative or like a continuation of Abdullah the Butcher. Years when I first started in wrestling, I was kind of confused because I was like, I don't know what I want to be. Like, what was my gimmick? But too many veteran wrestlers, like Paul LeDuc, former AWA Tag Team Champion. There was a gentleman, Sonny Warcloud, wrestled for the International. Not Stu Hart, but the oldest Hart. I can't remember his name. He passed away a few years ago. They were all calling me Abby. They're like, "Oh, you remind me of Abdullah the Butcher, except you could wrestle. Oh, you're like Abdullah the Butcher, but you're athletic." You know what I mean? So they were always, yeah, no, but that's it. Because listen, at my heaviest, at 380 pounds, I could have done a leapfrog, enziguri. There's video footage of that stuff. I was very agile, no matter how big I was, because athletically, but then I saw Bam Bam Bigelow, and Bam Bam Bigelow was like 320 pounds doing cartwheels and this and that. So I thought that was the prototype. And I saw then Vader, you know what I mean? So I'm like, at 300 pounds, you know what I mean? Either I could move like a tub of mud, or I could be athletic and show my stuff. So during this time, I was trying to figure out, you know, and I was like, maybe I could do the Son of Abdullah. And then this gentleman, Heavy Max Fury, he was a wrestler here. He's a legitimate Shaolin instructor, badass. You know, I'll send you a link. His accolades. This guy is legit. Anyways, he was a wrestler, and he graduated a year before, and we were like traveling buddies. And he's like, "Call yourself Soa." I said, "Soa." He goes, "Yeah, Son of Abdullah." So I was like, all right, let's do that. So, and how it was firmly like solidified. Like I told you, I was at the local gym, and I ran into Eddie Guerrero, and I told him, well, listen, I'm not a like a physical specimen. I wasn't on any juice or anything like that. And I didn't have a name, like, you know, of like past, like my father was this, father like that. But reading Mick Foley's book, he had the same mentality as, okay, I may not look the part, so what do I have to do to be exceptional? What would be the difference? So one of it was break his ass in 1,000 pieces, which I'll never do. You wouldn't see me falling off anything. I might fall
Jumping
off
on concrete.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude! Every time I used to see him do something, I'd be like, "Oh, like that was a horror movie for me." I'd rather watch The Exorcist than watch some of his matches because I couldn't believe it. But he became an anomaly because of that, and also traveling at different places. I really recommend that because the more you travel, more people hear your name and stuff like that. So after that, he said, you know, like do like CVs, contact promoters and this and that. So I was looking online, and I saw this promotion called NWA Hammerlock. Andre Baker, who was the promoter, and he was the trainer of Finn Balor, who's Fergal Devitt. So Finn Balor in WWE. And he had an NWA World Champion, which was a story. Well, basically, he allegedly, okay, he's gone, but allegedly, he told the current champion, if you want to make it out of this venue, you're dropping the belt to my champion. So, you know, the champion by mistake slipped off the ladder because it was a ladder match and knocked himself out. And because he was knocked out and they couldn't wake him up, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, that's gangster. That's where I need to be. So I contacted him. I sent him some information. He goes, you know who you look like? And I'm like, yeah, Abdullah the Butcher, the son of Abdullah. He goes, well, if you have a gimmick, I would book you. Do you have that gimmick? Now, at this time, I don't even have wrestling shoes. I don't have any. I'm like, yeah, I have that gimmick. And he's like, okay, I'll book you. So I hang up the phone, and I'm like, shit, what am I going to do now? So I go to my bootmaker because I was starting off as Dru Onyx. And as I'm going in, I see curl toe boots. I'm like, what are the chances? So I walk in, and I'm like, why do you have those? And he goes, those were for the Cirque du Soleil. Some of the performers, they needed, you know, boots with. I said, okay, great. Can you do a wrestling boot, but with that curl toe? He's like, yeah, I could do that. I said, okay. And then I spoke to a friend. His girlfriend started doing wrestling gear. So I said, I need like those karate baggy Sabu pants. Give me a black and red one and a red and black one. And yeah, and then I conned a couple of ex-girlfriends to buy my ticket and the hotel. And we were on. What? Yo, listen, at that time, I was so broke. At that time, no job. I don't know what I was doing for money, but I was eating like the traditional peanut butter sandwiches on bread. When the bread ran out, because I could only afford like a loaf of bread, I would take a spoon, and I take a big spoon, breakfast. Then I take another big spoon at lunch, and that's what it was. To this day, I can't stand peanut butter because, like, for so long when I was starting, that was it. So I tell my mom I'm going to England, and she used to live there because she did her nursing there. So she gave me a list of I had 2 aunts there. My grandmother was there, so I got the contacts. I get to Heathrow. I'm not even sure that they're gonna pick me up. You know what I mean? Because I told him I have this, blah, blah, blah. And after I told him that, he's like, okay, meet us there. And the whole arrangement was I paid for my own flight. And that's what a lot of these wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers are like, I should get paid. I'm like, people don't know you. Like, I pay people just because I'm a softie. You know, even if it's like $20 for gas, I always try to make sure somebody. But when I started, it wasn't about money. It was like, okay, when I get good, then you're going to pay me. You know what I mean? Also, sometimes you got to invest in yourself. Like, there's a couple of times in my career, I said, you know what? I'll eat the cost. This will benefit me. So this was one of the things. He told me, listen, I don't know you. I don't even know you're good. All I know is you look like Abdullah the Butcher. You could be trash. You could be hot garbage when you get here. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Bet on yourself. So I get to Heathrow, and I'm like, please, God, let these guys show up. And then he showed up with like these two hoodlum-looking people, and we get into this van, and I'm like, I hope I leave here with all my organs. So he's like, okay, we're going to drop you off. We're going to drop you off at this guy's house. You're going to stay the night. Don't mind him. He just came back from the Gulf War, some kind of war, whatever the case is. Yeah, already. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I come to this guy's house. He's like, oh, happy to meet you, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a great show, because I was there for a week. And I don't even think I had money on me. I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like, and there was no OnlyFans back then, so I was going to prostitute myself.
You would have definitely sold some feet pictures back in the day.
I had to. So I get there. I get to this dude's house, and nice guy and everything. You know, I walk in the house. There's no furniture. So I'm like, what's going on? He goes, well, I just came back from the war. I don't know if Andre told. I said, yeah, no problem. He goes, I have a couple of sleeping bags. I'm like, I don't care. I'm happy I'm in England, and I'm just happy that I'm going to wrestle. Like, for me, I was like, I almost conned this guy into believing that I was, and at that time I was like wrestling maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe. So I'm lying down in the middle of the night. This man is screaming PTSD to the nth degree. This guy is fucking yelling, and I'll kill you. And now I'm trying to figure out if under his sleeping bag he has a gun or something. Because you know how some people, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I survived that in the morning. I get in the car. I go, I said, Andre, that guy, nice guy, but he has some problems. Yeah, he's fucked up because of the war. I'm like, you knew this? The whole night I was screaming for like 8 hours. Like I didn't even wanted to comfort him. I'm there sleeping in the corner. I'm like, oh my God. So we get to the venue, and that's the first time I meet Paul Tracy from Ireland and Finn Balor, Fergal Devitt. So they're like, oh, these are the guys you're going to be fighting all week. These guys are heels. And I'm like, I'm playing Abdullah the Butcher's son, and I'm the babyface? I'm like, how's this going to go? He goes, don't worry. They're from Ireland. And he walks away like that. That's an explanation. I'm like, well, what does that mean?
What does that mean? What you mean?
Yeah. So Fergal's like, it means that because we're in Ireland, they're going to hate us automatically. I was like, that's rough. So I was with a local British guy. It was a tag team match. Local, but he was small and frail and whatever, he was going to take the beating, and I come in for the hot tag. So I'm like, okay. And at this time, as I'm trying to figure out, both these Irish guys are looking at me like I'm like I'm their dinner. Like Fergal's looking me up and down like, oh yeah, we're going to have fun with this one. And we wrestled all week, and the matches were great. And the thing I learned from them was every night, even though we had the structure of the match, during the heat, where the bad guys get the over meaning, I know you guys know, but I'm just saying anybody watching the podcast, over meaning that is to turn for the bad guys to get their to get their shots in. They would never do the same thing. And at that time, I'm like, okay, hot tag, clothesline, body slam, body press outside, spear. I would do that every night because I'm like, okay, he takes the beating. But halfway through, I'm like, I should be stepping it up. I should be learning my game, because back then it was okay. Not every match was on the internet, but had someone film something every night, they would have noticed, hey, Drew's doing the same thing the whole show. You know what I mean? So it taught me creativity. And I didn't know I was going to be over. And it was true. Because they were from Ireland, like the I couldn't, the pop I got when I got out, because I'm like, they're gonna see me in these karate pants and walking with a sword, and they're gonna be like, they're gonna run. No, as soon as they saw the bad guys out first, and I saw how much they were getting booed, and then I popped out, it was over. And what was cool about it, I knew the fans never saw me before, so I had to show out. So regardless if I'm doing the same moves, the clotheslines, I look like I'm taking off their heads. The body slams, the splashes, the Vader bombs, whatever I'm doing, I'm giving 110% because that's what I was taught. I have a background in football, background in boxing. Give 110% in whatever you do. I've never phoned it in forever. And after that match, which was before intermission, because Andre wanted to see how I was, so he had me on the first or second match. After he saw that I could work and I was into it, he's like, okay, we're going to do pictures, okay? I cut the cost of the film, whatever it cost for the film, and then we split 50-50. I said, okay, no problem. He goes, I'm going to sell the photos for 10 pounds. 10 pounds is like $30. You know what I mean? He took 60 pictures of me. I made more money, do you understand, in that one day. And it was crazy. It was enough that I could get away from the war vet, the psycho war vet, put myself in a hotel. It covered my hotel. It covered my transport to everything, because I was there for a week, and no word of a lie, I must have made 200 pictures. So 200 pictures at $30 a pop. Crazy. You know what I mean? So that's why I tell people, bet on yourself. And even then, and then it made me think, okay, imagine if I brought shirts. So after that tour, when I came back again, because they brought me in for a 2-week tour, I had 8x10s, I had shirts. I learned very quickly, merch it up. So yeah, I don't know why I said that big long story. It was something about, whatever question you were doing, but one thing I was going to tell you is you got to travel, you got to venture, you got to invest. So many people would be like, well, I'm not getting a payoff, I'm not going. I had an opportunity. I'm going to say this, and I know I'm apologizing to my student now. Well, I shouldn't apologize. I'm always right. But my student, like, we had an arena show, all right? And it was 10 hours from Montreal. And I told one of my students, hey, somebody got canceled, and do you want to come? So I don't know if he felt miffed, like, why wasn't I asked before? Why is he asking me now? But the guy decided, 10 hours is too far away. Now, Roosevelt, I don't know how many hours he traveled to came to my show, but when I heard dude said 10 hours is too long, I'm like, okay. After he saw the film of the show, of the full arena, crowd going crazy, that, you know what I mean? Then he was like, man, I should have went. And here's the funny thing. He didn't have to pay for travel. I covered the travel. So he didn't have to pay for the hotel. I covered the hotel. And he still said no. Whereas when I started, I had, I can't tell you how many ugly women I had to date to get some money to buy my plane ticket. I couldn't tell you, who I kissed in the dark to make sure that I got my gear. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, So that's what you got to do. You got to really invest in yourself and have no ego.
Oh man, can you I think you mentioned a lot of big names of people that you've met. I mean, you dropped the name of Eddie Guerrero, which is a hero to a lot of people in the wrestling world, man. Have you ever met a wrestler and kind of fanned out a little bit?
Fanned out?
Yeah.
Sabu. I was a big fan of Sabu, and what was messed up was the promoter. I was on the outs with this promoter. I said I would never wrestle for this promotion again. He called me up, and he's like, listen, we want you to do the show. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck yourself, die slow. I'm never going to, never. And he's like, you'll be in a tag team match with Sabu. So now I'm like, shit. So I'm like, nah, I'll have to think about it. He's like, I'll double your pay. I'm like, I don't know. He goes, I'll bring you in as a referee to set up the show, the show before, and I'll give you your full pay as a wrestler. I said, I'm just going to have to think about it. I'll get back to you. But in my head, I was like, yes. But I can't let him know that. Sometimes you got to play poker. That's why I also tell my students, once you get a date, just say someone says, hey, October 15th. I always say, let me look at my schedule and get back to you. You know what I mean? And it's not to punk them off or anything, but too many rookies are so okay. Like they don't think of the overall. Maybe they can get another booking somewhere else or whatever the situation. But they'll say yes, and then they'll be like, "Yes, I'll do it." And then they're like, "We don't have any wrestling gear. We don't, because they're so giddy." So, anyways, considering that, I was like, I'll get back. So he calls me back and he's like, "Listen, are you gonna do it?" I said, "I don't know, man. Maybe if you pay me a little bit more." He's like, "Okay, done." He didn't know that I would have done it for free. I would have done it for a hot dog and a Gatorade. I would have done that. I would have paid him because Sabu versus Taz in ECW, that whole thing had me like, whoa. So we're in the match and it's online. You can see it. And out of the 23 minutes of the match, it's just me and him fight. It's a Texas Tornado tag team. And out of the 23 minutes, 19 minutes is me and Sabu. And we're having the time of our life. We're doing things and talking and all kinds of nonsense. And I'm like, I fought him. I fought him. The worst person that like kind of broke my heart was the Honky Tonk Man. He was my favorite, like one of my favorite IC champions. Just the fact that like, for years he would never win like legally. Like he'll beat all the jobbers and then get conned out or disqualified and whatever. And then when I met the guy, they say never meet your heroes. So I won't get into that because he might find this and then want to harass me. But I met Vader. We didn't fight, but I met Vader. And I thought that was cool because I told him, I'm like, I stole your Vader bomb, whatever. And he was just really cool about it. But I think the coolest, because I met a lot of people, like a lot of wrestlers, either working against them. And it's just like little interesting, funny things. So Demolition is there. And I met them a year before when they were in Montreal. Didn't wrestle them, but I asked for a picture. So I got a picture with them. Then a few years later, I saw them again because we're at another show. And I brought the picture and I asked them to sign it. So we got into talking and stuff. And they noticed I was doing the Abdullah gimmick. And Smash was really cool. Just sitting down, talking to me all the time. And I'm like, these guys are really cool. The next day, because it was like a 3-day tour, the next day I walked past them because the backstage where they were, it was full. There's too many people and whatever. So I was going to go to the second room. And Smash is like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go to the other room. There's no room. He goes, why don't you want to sit with us? I'm like, there's all luggage there. This guy knocked everybody's luggage. He's like, you just knocked everybody's luggage. He's like, you're sitting with me. And I'm like, okay. So he was cool. There's a lot of people. I met Rick Martel. He was cool. And it was cool because the AWA World Championship is my favorite belt of all time. And the first Pro Wrestling Illustrated book I ever saw was him on the belt, on the front page with the my favorite belt. That's the first time I saw the belt. And when I found Rick Martel was from Montreal, I found out. I'm like, he's a world champion and he's in Quebec. So 15 years later, I'm on a TV show because I'm a wrestling consultant for a lot of the film and TV shows that happen in Quebec. So I was on the show for 2 seasons where I did all the storytelling, like all the wrestling movements, the stunt guys, the coordinators, and stuff like that. And for the last episode of that show, it had Rick Martel, the actor was going to fight Rick Martel in the main event or whatever. So anyways, I hear him talking about some stories that nobody's like, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this? And I'm like, I remember this. And I start talking to him, and because he was talking about one time he took a beer bottle, smashed against his head, and busted it open. It was like a big deal. And I'm like, I know. He's like, you do. And then we start talking, and I tell him the story. I'm like, yo, the first pro wrestling magazine, you were there, the AWA World Champion. And I loved it because the AWA World Champion looked like Captain America's shield. It was so big. It was like, I was like, I need to have that belt. And as I'm talking and saying that, this guy pulls out a replica of the AWA belt, and he's like, let's take a picture, kid. And I'm like, this is the only time you ever see me take a picture. And as gruff and mean looking and Abdullah-like, I'm like a 6-year-old kid. I'm like, oh my God. Probably more. Oh, one more. I fought Greg the Hammer Valentine. And at one point of the match, we got to the point where, like, he was back at Madison Square Garden, WrestleMania 2. Like, you saw the fire in his eyes because I was bumping and doing all these things to set up his stuff. And, because we called everything in the ring. So he hits me with a clothesline. I keep my legs up so he can grab the leg and give me the figure four. And then he looks around and he starts doing it, and I start fanboying, and I almost tapped out by mistake. So I gotta remember I'm still in a match. So sometimes that happens, and it's cool and it's needed. So
now you are dropping all these legendary names, man, and I know a lot of the fan base that watch wrestling now, they these are like your dad's legends and stars, right? I don't know what kind of juices and berries are you drinking to look so young, brother? Because you know what I'm saying, like, what are you doing to take care of yourself now? What are you drinking? Prune juice?
Listen, I'm drinking the same thing you're drinking. I'm drinking the same thing that Roosevelt drank. Listen, people, black don't crack. Okay, so I don't know why you want me to start making some concoction to have people run out. But if I say coconut water, now coconut water is going to make $1 million because everyone's going to think that's it. It's a combination of genetics. It's a combination of, like, all my life I was training, and I laugh a lot. Like, there's a lot of exuberance, and I was able to do a lot of things that I always wanted to do. So when you have an opportunity to do stuff and to laugh, it takes years off your life. Like, we're talking about, like, one time back, I met The Undertaker. So I'm at a tryout, and it went horribly wrong that day. It was just terrible. It was one of the worst tryouts I ever had. Anyways, so I'm commiserating. It's at the end, and I'm just standing there, and this guy, The Undertaker, comes up to me, and he's like, "Brother, I just want to wish you well, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. You have a great night." And he walks away, and I'm looking around to see who he really is talking to. So as I turn around, and I'm in a corner, and there's nobody but me, like, I must have come off rude because the whole time he's talking to me, my mouth is open like this. So I was like, but here's the reason. I'll tell you why a lot of times these opportunities happen. As you know, most fans fan out. I do, except I do it internally. Do you understand? I have a poker face. I don't come off like a fan. So a lot of them feel comfortable. And the thing is also, if you look the part, then Dory Funk once told me, he goes, if you look like a dresser, if you look like a wrestler, you dress like a wrestler, you act like a wrestler, and you move like a wrestler, then you're a wrestler. So I always remember that. So I conducted like nobody, and there's nothing against it, but you never saw me backstage wearing merch from WWE. I never looked like a fanboy. If anything, I looked like a hoodlum. Like one time, Rhino went back. He was backstage at a show, so I walked by and I said, "Hey, sir, I just want to say I enjoy your work, and I'll be wrestling you in about a month. You take it easy." And I walked out, and he shook my hand. But he told the next wrestler, he goes, "Who was that gangster? Who's that hoodlum that just came and shook my hand?" So because I never looked like a fan, I found it was easier. Rather than, the traditional typical fan to sign all these 15 things and I love you and I'm going to follow you back to your hotel. And like, I never did that. You know what I mean? So I think it allowed me to be in a lot of situations that I deserved to be in, some that I didn't deserve, and some of them I shouldn't have been there in the first place. You know what I mean? So it's really about how you conduct yourself as a character.
Awesome, man. Well, speaking of characters, we have this thing on the show, and I don't know if you heard, but right before you got on the show, Roosevelt said some disparaging things about one of your great aunties.
One of my aunties?
One of your great aunties.
At least I wasn't raised. Hey, tell him I wasn't. At least I wasn't raised by two men. So why are you messing with my aunties? It better be Aunt Jemima, and there's no relations.
Talking about your great aunties, man. So we got this thing on the show where we like to put our wrestlers and entertainers that we have on the show against Roosevelt in a promo battle. So
Okay.
I want you to cut a scathing wrestling promo
I can,
against the
man.
one and only Roosevelt. Are you ready?
No,
Now,
listen. I can't do that with somebody I actually like. If it was somebody I didn't like, I tell everything about them. You know, how I can smell the breath from here, how he pees when he sits down. Like I can't do that with Roosevelt. I have so much respect for Roosevelt.
do that. Find something about him that you hate real quick.
I can't. The only thing is that he's good. Listen, you know what? I'm not to mess up your thing, but like I love the show, and you got to give flowers to people. Like maybe I'll try to do it later, but like for those who don't know, man, if you have an opportunity to book Roosevelt, do so. Ultimate professional, great worker. I've already had him booked. I'm gonna book him again. That is why it's so hard for me. And it's funny because I got a mouth on me. Like I can sit there and roast people, but I found God, and I've decided now that my path is not about breaking down my fellow brothers, but lifting them up. So I can't be a part of this. You know what I mean? But, if you want me to talk about the honky tonk, man, then maybe no.
Roosevelt got a hunch talk and shit.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk shit about you. But to answer your question, the original question, character-wise, gimmicks. So Abdullah the Butcher, he doesn't talk, does a lot of drooling, looking very intense, and the personification behind that gimmick is he doesn't care about belts. He doesn't care about championships. He just wants to go there and hurt people. The fact that he could hurt somebody and not go to jail is what sustains him. He's just a monster. He's like, I try to relate him to like almost like Doomsday from DC. He was put on this earth to destroy. Whereas Dru Onyx, it's all about championships and regality and honor me and worship me and talk trash. He's a bully. And you know, the way he wrestles is like he wrestles like he has 2 wives, 3 ex-wives, 2 baby mamas, a mistress, and a side chick, and he has 100 kids, and he has to feed them all. So
go for broke. All right.
Yeah, so for him, cheating is not cheating if you don't get caught. It's all about winning championships. It's about bragging about that. All his promos is I'm better than you, and I slept with all the women in your family. You know what I mean? That's Dru Onyx. Whereas, Soa is like he's just a monster. Just a monster. He wants every match to be a prison shower scene.
Jesus Christ. That is scary. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, this has been an amazing interview. And like I said, Coach, man, I'm so blessed to have you in my life and a part of my career and my path. And you got an amazing team up there in Canada, which we're going to bring some of the guys on. I definitely want to bring on Wilson. Definitely want to bring on Mustafa. Real quick, let's talk about the fight with myself and Mustafa. Since you had the chance to watch the video and you watched the first match that Saturday night, what was that moment for you? Yeah, and I know what the moment meant for me and what it meant for Mustafa. What did it mean for you?
Dude, it was amazing for a couple of reasons. I'm a big fan of shoot wrestling. I watched UWFI. I've watched numerous promotions that had to deal with that aspect. I have a background in submission wrestling and in grappling. In fact, I was on that way going in that direction until I found out there's pro wrestling in Quebec, because at that time, I didn't think I could find a wrestling school or to get in. It wasn't like how it is now. So I started training for submission wrestling catch. And like I said, I used to watch the UWFI and King of Pancras. Those were the 2 promotions I used to love. So to see, first of all, to see a brother with a world championship, that was amazing, because I've never had a world championship. I've had a lot of established titles, but never a world championship. And to see two brothers fight for the world championship at my promotion was a sense of joy because, like I said, I enjoyed your work. You know, I knew Mustafa. You know, I see him as like a younger brother, and then to see you guys perform because I knew what Mustafa could do because I trained him, and then he went on to other catch establishments, and I was curious because I've seen his matches, but I've never seen him work, you know, in that type of style. But they wouldn't have AIWF, which I want to give a big shout out to, wouldn't have put the title on him if he couldn't be able to sustain and conduct. So just the fact that they had a 2-night situation, I thought it was cool. So I contacted a promotion that I'm associated with, and they were down with it. And to find out also that you haven't made a defense. So I said, you know what? Let him make a defense on Saturday, and then the title, you know, will be moved on Sunday. And to see them follow the rules within the confines, I love that stuff. I know that may not be for everybody, so it was even more extra when everybody, both nights, catered to it. You know what I mean? It was a special attraction. They understood the rules. And even though it wasn't a traditional pro wrestling match, they liked it. So Saturday was good. But because they didn't really know him that well, and Moose was a heel, and it was crazy because Moose was a heel the Saturday night, and then the babyface in another town, the other, you know. But I told them the Sunday show is going to be crazy because Moose is super over. And when this guy came out, man, you know, he brought it, and he brought the intensity. And you know, one of the projects I'd like to do in the near future is just to do an all-shoot wrestling show. So have 5 or 6 matches, bring you down, bring guys, practitioners who can do that style. Have it sponsored by Hayabusa, which is a mixed martial arts manufacturing clothing company that I'm associated with, and just run some shows maybe 3 times a year. So, yeah, to see that, to see him win a championship, because I've always said it, you know, I may never be a world champion, but before I die, I'm going to train someone. And ironically, Kevin Owens heard that, and he sent me a very nice, a sweet email. He goes, even though you didn't train me from beginning to the end, you helped me get to this point. And as far as I'm considered, me with the Universal title, you've done that. So I was like, that's cool. But I still never got somebody from day one. So Mustafa was day one. So when Mustafa became a world champion, in extension, I felt like I did, and I was able to coach and be in a position for that to happen. So I was very happy about it. Watching the match again, it was better than what I expected. Not that it was I didn't expect, but it exceeded the expectations, not of me, but the crowd. The crowd really liked it. There was a lot of people who'd be like, oh, you know, I'm not into UWFI, but I was into that. I'm not into mixed martial arts, but I enjoyed that. And and here's the thing, that psychology-wise, you don't usually put boxing or this type of match with a traditional pro wrestling card, because you're basically telling the fans, okay, this is shoot. So if this is shoot, it may mess up the movement or the psychology of the whole show as a pro wrestling, because now you're saying that this stuff isn't. So they did enough pro wrestling within the shoot to make this be like, okay, the only difference is it's submission rather than knockout. I mean, it's submission rather than a pin. And what we did was there was no submissions allowed until their match. So that way, when they start doing the submissions, it means more and it matters, because up to their match, which I think you guys were 4th or 5th, were you guys
5th?
5th. So for 4 matches, no submissions, no rope breaks. So when it came to them now, it was fresh. And then after that, right after intermission, then submissions and everything was allowed. So the fact that they were able to do that and people still respected the other matches is a testament of 2 combatants that understood psychology and made it work.
Right.
Real quick, before we close the show, I want to do something really quick with you, because you mentioned being a fan of the shoot style and catch wrestling and the UWFI. If you were in a bar, and you're getting ready to get jumped by 4 men.
Okay.
Name 4 wrestlers that you would have by your side and you knew you were walking out of that bar, no problems.
Meng, Ken Shamrock, Brock Lesnar. You said 4 or 5?
4.
And Terry Funk.
Damn.
And I'll tell you why. Meng, you've heard of how hardcore and how badass and how crazy. So while he's biting noses off and shit, I can run. All right. Who's the second person that I met? Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock, tough guy. If we have to get on the ground, he's breaking somebody's leg. I can run. Brock Lesnar, he's just whatever you throw at this gentleman, he can just take it. And replace him with Andre the Giant. Like, you need one big, massive thug that can take a lot of abuse, and I can run. And Terry Funk, because he's a ballroom brawler, and take him or Harley Race. You know what I mean? Harley Race, because he's tough and he probably has a gun with him, or Terry Funk, because it's going to be so enjoyable as he's beating people up. It is guaranteed that he's going to be also drinking at the same time. So he's putting on a show no matter what. And, I'm not the world's toughest guy, but I'm not afraid of a fight. And I've been known to have a few locker room scraps back in my day when I lacked Christ in my life. So, yeah, those are the 4 people. Let me ask you guys this, because I'm curious. Who would be the 4 that you would pick?
Go first, Brian.
Oh man, I would do Ron Simmons.
Good.
Just because I know Ron would get down with no problems. I would have to do a big too. So I'm gonna pick Almost, because when you see Almost, he's just a big guy. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to squabble with somebody that's 7 foot plus. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I would have to say, you said Brock Lesnar. I'm gonna do Bobby. So I'm gonna do Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that. Just a big, massive guy that
just
knows
a big, massive guy. Yeah, and I don't know. I need somebody that can whoop ass and then kind of get us out of there at the same time. So I think I'm gonna probably go like Chris Jericho, because he can talk to the couch.
Chris Jericho, really?
Yeah, he can talk to the couch afterwards. Get us out of it. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Put somebody towards Bill. Yeah.
That's cool. What about you, Roosevelt?
All right, my pick. I'm gonna start off because I'm from Brooklyn, so you gotta start off with Taz.
All right. By the way, Taz is
Taz.
one of my favorite wrestlers. So, anyways, go on.
I'm gonna start with Taz, and then because of that Brooklyn mentality, I don't want to see nobody be able to walk out and me trying to come get me tomorrow. I'm gonna go with man, his name was on the tip of my tongue. Shoot, what was his name?
What does he look like?
Passed a couple years ago.
Just passed.
No. Crazy as hell. You got the do-rag and the
what's his name? From the not Executioners.
Not Homicide. What's his name?
New Jack.
New Jack.
Yes.
Yeah.
New Jack. I'm taking New Jack. So what's that? New Jack. And who else did I say?
Taz.
You said New Jack, Taz.
I'm taking New Jack, Taz, Mark Henry,
world's strongest man.
Mark Henry, and I'm taking R-Truth.
Really?
R-Truth. Y'all don't sleep on R-Truth if you want to.
No, I'm not sleeping. I'm just curious to see why. Like, what is it that you
R-Truth done been.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Before the comedy and everything, R-Truth was, man, listen, he was in them bars. Okay. Right. He was behind them bars and just doing shit. Like I had an opportunity to talk to him. He said, man, I've done some shit that I shouldn't have been doing.
All right.
Man, I've been through some shit. So Those would be my 4. I'm walking out. I'm chilling. I'm sitting at the bar eating milk and cookies, watching.
Nah, somebody in your team ain't making it out. I'm just somebody. One of them ain't making that.
Yeah. You got to go for the tough guys. Like, yeah. No, all right, that's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Listen, can I give just a shout out to my school and where people can?
Yeah. Tell people what you got going on and where can they find you.
All right. Well, right now we're still taking some people in for our school in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo, beautiful facility. Within it, there's a wrestling ring, wrestling mat. Equipment to work out, CrossFit equipment, has everything that you need to help you on your journey to become a pro wrestler. And you could check us out on Instagram, Pro Wrestling Dojo. You could check out Dru Onyx at druonyx.tcprodojo. I'm sure my handles are going to be on that, so you can check me on Facebook. Same thing, Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo. We also have a promotion called, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling. We run shows once every 2 months, and then we do a couple of shows during the summer, spot shows that I'd like to bring Roosevelt down. And let me ask you something, Brian. Where are you situated?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Listen, if you ever want to come down, let me know.
I'm letting you know now. I want to come down.
In fact, one of the people I helped train, Brianna Brandy, who's currently with who's those 2 brothers, the Prophets, the
Street Profits.
Yeah, so Brianna Brandy, she's originally from Ohio. I trained her in Dominican Republic because that's where she was staying. She had her first WWE tryout, and then they told her that that there has to be a little bit of finesse. So we got into contact. I went there, helped her in Dominican Republic. But then when she left the Dominican Republic, she went to Phoenix. So she lived in Phoenix for a bit before she got called up to the WWE. So, Phoenix, Arizona. That's a place I'd like to check out eventually. But
man, come on down. And listen, anytime if you need somebody that can do commentary, I'm starting to get on my commentary chops. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah. You need a good commentator. I got you. I can try to call some matches for you.
So I'll tell you what. I will get his Saturday match and have that sent to you, and then have the match that he did for us, have that sent with no vocals on it, because we have commentating already, but I can get it. And it gives you an opportunity to work on, your trade, apply your trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't mind dibbling and dabbling. You know what I'm saying? Make it sound good.
You look kind of sturdy. How come you ain't wrestling? You know what I mean?
You know what? I've never thought about being a wrestler. I was always, ever since I was in college, man, I did a lot of security. So I did security a couple times for NXT and WWE, and been a bouncer pretty much all my life. So I've never thought about wrestling, but in another life, I probably would have took it on. I think I would have been all right. I would have been somebody promotion. I can talk shit, you know what I'm saying? I can whoop ass, and if it get too crazy, I'll shoot somebody. So, it's just...
You should be the 4th guy in the next time we scrap.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, look, I would love to link up with you, my brother, but hey, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. You've been dropping jewels and nuggets throughout the entire podcast. We got this thing on the show called Final Word, where we give a little bit of motivation, a little bit of expertise, and some advice going through the week, man. So, Dru Onyx, do you have a final word for your beautiful subjects?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just to my subjects. I just want to tell everybody, life is short. And the fact that life is so short, man, don't waste your time on things that you have no power to deal with. Handle the stuff that you can, one day at a time, and love yourself, man, because that's where it starts. You can't love anybody unless you love yourself first. So I just wish everybody to love life and hope they live long. That's it.
Absolutely. That is the final word from the one and only Dru Onyx. Roosevelt, do you have a final word for the beautiful people?
Yeah, I know we talk about how You know, I'm always beating people up and throwing people's daddies in garbage cans. But I'm gonna share something little sentimental that I sent to my lady yesterday. I told her, I said, I called heaven and I asked God that when my time is done, can I remember you? And he told me no, because no matter how strong I am, the thought of not being next to her would be too much for me to bear. And I want everyone to really think about that. Think about the time that you have with someone or the time that you have on this planet, the things that you do, whether it's wrestling, boxing, working at a desk job, security, whatever. If it's something that you truly love and you truly hold dear to your heart, hold it, enjoy it, cherish every moment, every memory, because when the time is done, it may be too much for you to bear to remember. So while you can have the energy and the strength to cherish and remember it now, do so. That is my final word for the beautiful people.
Awesome. Great final word from the one and only Roosevelt. I think I'm going to echo what you guys are saying, just in some sentiments. There was a quote that I've heard, and I believe it was Les Brown, but I've heard a couple of other motivators talk about this and say this. But live full and die empty. You know what I'm saying? You want to fill your life full of experience. If you can, you would like to fill your life full of love, full of energy. Do things that bring you joy. The advice that you have or that you get from people, pass that on. Pass that on. You said something earlier in the show. Intelligence turns to knowledge, and then knowledge turns to wisdom. Something of that sort.
Yeah.
So the knowledge and the information and the things that you learn, pass that on to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Because you holding on to that doesn't do anybody any justice. Somebody can take the information or the knowledge that you've given them and change their life completely. You know what I mean? So you want to be able to live out the things that you are dreaming about. You want to be able to touch and have the type of relationships that you want to have. So my advice to the Best Damn Nation is live full, live to the fullest. When you die empty.
Amazing.
That is the final word for your boy, Brown Renegade. Was that a good word, fellas?
That was good. That was real good.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. Mr. Dru Onyx.
Yes, sir.
Can you help us end the show, sir?
Say that. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can you help us end the show?
Yes, most definitely. Listen, 1, 2, 3, the place to be, as you all can see, most definitely. You have bear witness. You have watched. You have acknowledged the Best Damn Wrestling Podcast. Make sure you follow them on Instagram, on all the social medias, Facebook and all that. Sorry, I stuttered because I'm in the culture of the vultures, and it's just great and it's wild, and just keep on watching it, man. And if you don't watch it, you're going to have to deal with Roosevelt because he likes to fight.
Damn right. Oh, man, it can't get no better than that. Beautiful people, we can't hold you no longer. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week on the next Best Damn Wrestling Podcast. Beautiful people, we bid you adieu.